All right, guys, I'm just going to spend a few minutes doing a bit of a thought spill. I've been hesitating to make this video, but I realize there's no reason for me to wait, especially considering what this video is about. So last time I did one of these little um, uh, videos using my visual journal, I talked about two things, how these things are interconnected. Let me turn off Flux real quick. You guys can see my screen turn from orange to white here. Um, so there's love and there's intelligence or intellect. I like intelligence better because intelligence is using the intellect for problem solving. Um, and I think, um, well, let me just get into the definitions. So love, I want to talk about love. The willing the good of the other is what they always say as Catholics. And it's not just the will, it's not just the intention, but it's the actual doing. It's the completion of the action by doing one's will and ultimately God's will. So I just finished the book called The Interior Castle by Saint Teresa of Avila. The reason I read it is because, as some of you know, I have lived a life of sin. I have been a really bad person in the past 30 or so years. And recently, I've been really trying to turn my life around, um, get recovering from addiction, and just now that I don't want to say I've recovered, but I've been sober for a bit of time now, almost 4 months. And I think what's happening is that the time and energy are just sort of starting to be used for something better. Um, I spent a lot of time, in recovery, working with support groups, working with a therapist, working with my family, just to get myself in a better situation, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And it is improving, but there's always more to improve. And The Interior Castle is a book from a Catholic mystic, Saint Teresa of Avila, who lived in like the 1500s or 1600s, I think 1500s. But she wrote a book about deepening one's prayer life. And the book is really fascinating because she gets to really, really deep levels. I know a lot of different religions have meditation, and you can get to really deep levels. And it makes me wonder if they're all tapping into the same thing within the human spirit. But I'm a Catholic and I believe in Teresa's search for God within, finding God within herself. Um, it sort of resonates with my favorite song of all time, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, the title song of the album, where she talks about um, deep in my heart, the answer was in me. I made up my mind to define my own destiny. Another line says, I hear so many cry for help, searching outside of themselves, but now I know his strength is within me. Um, and The reason is my favorite song, and I only rarely listen to it, and it comes back to me in hard times, in times of suffering, and in times of distress. And I listen to the song, and it helps me remember that it's because God is in me that I'm not alone, and I have something to live for. And so that's kind of what the book is about. Uh, and the book talks about seven levels, and I'm gonna draw them in concentric circles, but I'm gonna draw half circles because it leads to this. It leads to love. So We're gonna one, two, three, four. Let's make them a little bit smaller. One, two, three, so seven, six, five, four, three, two, one. They don't necessarily get bigger as they go, so maybe let's just change this. Let's just talk about layers. The layers. One, two. So seven, six, five, four, three, two, one. So the first, so seven here, six, five, four, three, two, one. And I guess I just want to summarize what she talks about in her book. Um, she said some people never even get into the first layer, and the first layer is where the first layer is when if you start entering, you start looking into your own soul, which she describes as like a crystal castle. Um, She says the soul is a beautiful thing. It's made perfectly, but it can be corrupted. We can get distracted from seeing its beauty by all the bad distractions of the outside world, sin, distractions, worldly desires. Um, your own personal vices, stuff like that. And she calls them vermin. Um, vermin, like this, all that stuff. You can sort of enter into your soul, and if you don't enter into your soul, if you never even enter the first layer, you might not even notice the vermin. You're just living in the world. But once you enter into the first part, you start seeing it. You start noticing it. Like, hey, wait a minute. These things are vermin. These things are actually bad, and it's up to me to pray and get rid of them in my life by going to confession, by working on my character defects, by building good habits, stuff like that. Um, Level two, I'm gonna sort of speed through these, but level two, she talks about worldly desires, not worldly, but like even if these things are good, like honors from other people, wealth, even esteem from a partner or esteem from your friends, these things might be good, like they might be gifts to you, but ultimately, if you're attached to them in the sense that they satisfy you, um, it could be that they're not ordered toward God, but ordered toward selfishness, and so you have to start peeling those away, um, and um, they're not necessarily vermin, but they're things you need to peel away because they're inner desires that should be directed towards God, but rather you need to redirect them because you've been directing them towards yourself. So that would be layer two, and so layer three is about like you're starting to say yes to God's will. You're starting to say, I want to be morally good, and God, I want you to lead me. And so for the first three layers, it's like you can do this on your own. So let's make it green for like good effort. But then it's at a certain point, I want to make this part yellow because it's like at this point, God kind of has to take over, and I'm gonna put yellow for like I don't know a heavenly color. In the fourth layer, she talks about two cisterns, or I guess they're like water buckets. Imagine just like buckets of water. Here are some buckets. I'm an artist. Why am I drawing everything so simply? But imagine this. This is just my whiteboard, teaching on a whiteboard. So we have two buckets of water, but they're filled differently. So the first bucket is like us. We fill it ourselves by looking at the graces of God in life and all the blessings, like all the good things in life, food, family, love, relationships, or even just God Himself, like in our prayer, going to church, in our meditation, spiritual gifts, all these things. We can like build pipes to like make create faucets so that our cup is filled. Um, and like that's one way to fill our cup, and she's in here, she's talking about the fourth level, right? But when you start doing I think what she calls the prayer of quiet, where you humbly allow yourself to you know say yes to God if He wills it or if He doesn't, and it's like a rising tide within you. And so imagine the buckets are like in a room full of water, and if the tide rises, then the bucket is going to be filled whether you put any effort into it or not. And it's like you're waiting for God to do it. And so this way, it might seem to us that we want to, it might this one might be better because we want to put in the effort, to get the water however we want to. But if you allow God to do it, if you deepen your prayer, open yourself to the grace of God, and allow Him to give you those pleasures and delights, and that these things include like virtues, right? So it's not just you want to feel good inside, but God can give you greater virtue like humility or diligence. So these things can become fruit um by your works. Like if I pray, if I'm deep in my prayer life and allow God to swell up in me a feeling of diligence, then it's going to make me work hard. So it's not just an interior thing. The interior thing sort of explodes or exudes from us. So, and if the tide rises, the water is going to fill both both buckets either way. So the buckets are just going to be full whether you have the pipes or not, because you're allowing God to do it. And the feelings you get, or she said the fruits that you get, the I think she calls them the delights that you get from allowing God to do it for you, are superior, because he's infinitely good, and if he chooses to fill you up, you're going to feel, she uses different terms, like there's feelings, there's your intellect, and then there's the spiritual, which is like hard to explain. Like from this point on, from level 4 onwards, she has a hard time like explaining things. She always prays in the book like, I hope I can explain this right, because this is some deep stuff that it's hard for me, a human being, to explain in words. And yet she still describes it very well. Um, Once you get to level 5, this is where you start, like, this is like you're starting to like really be one with God. So these levels are like unity with love, with a God who is love. Um, and I just to get through them, number 5, level 5 is simple unity. Like you start feeling like, I am one with God right now. I never want to leave this place. And again, it's not just internal. It comes out in virtue. It comes out in humility. Um, it comes out in love for others, because at one point in the book she says, um, love of neighbor, loving, the golden rule, like loving other people as yourself, doing that is proof that God is in you. So sometimes you can't tell if somebody has love of God. Sometimes you can't even tell if you have love of God. But if you have love of God, naturally you will love your neighbor. You will love, your family and friends, and even your enemies, because God will be in you. And so um, level 6 is when it starts to get really, really crazy. So we believe in the devil, and the devil's still going to be trying to grasp at you and tempt you to do bad things. Like the more you get close to God, the more the devil is angered by it, and the more he tries to um, you know grab you and pull you back outside of the castle, or back to the vermin, or whatever, back, even just one step back. Like, the devil's trying to pull you out of this, because the devil does not want us to encounter God. And whether you're a believer or not, all this could be figurative, for you. But for me, like, the awareness of dark spirits, the awareness of evil, has become very real in my life. And one understanding I've come to, this whole, from reading this book, is like, as I've been saying, the interior comes out in the exterior, right? So if there are bad, if there's a bad spirit in me, a bad will in me, um, it's gonna do bad things. And for me, having developed an addiction from childhood, not just one addiction, but more than one addiction from childhood, um, like, it's a these evil spirits, existing in the world, they caught me. And I'm not to say that I was not culpable, because when I turned 18, I, technically an adult, I was still participating in these things, even if I knew they were wrong. Even before that age, I knew they were wrong, and yet I could not stop, because of its power. And that was a bad spirit in me. But it's one of several bad spirits in me that I discovered recently. And the closer you get to God, the kind of the more awareness you have of those character defects. So for me, it started with recognizing like the 7 deadly sins within me, like lust and sloth. And then I started realizing things that might have not been quite as strong in me, but they were there. And so I wanted to eliminate them. And so, like, I found pride, I found anger, I found envy, gluttony, greed. I found all of it. All the 7 deadly sins, I was participating in. And all of them can be characterized as a demon in a way. That's why they call it fighting your inner demons. And I have been. And the fight is not over. They're still in me, in some of them in small ways. And another thing I've learned about the spiritual is you don't kill the spiritual. Even if you're not religious, lust is just going to be a thing that exists in the world. Pride is going to be a thing that exists in the world until the human race is somehow perfected. And will that happen? I don't know. As a Catholic, I believe it will. But you, whether you're religious or not, um, do you think it can happen that everyone can be perfected and pride in the world will be gone? I don't know. That's up to you to decide, and it's up to you if you want to work toward that or not. And I want to work toward it at starting with myself, and that's what the interior castle is about. It's about perfecting oneself through deep thought and prayer and getting closer to God. So level 6 is when this battle is happening, um, but also God is like testing you because you know how great it is to be one with God. You know, once you get past this unity level, like levels 5 and 6. Um, but when God allows Himself or allows you to feel some what she calls aridity, which is like a desert. In some Catholics call it the dark night of the soul, where you know God is real, you know you love Him, you've been in His presence before, but He allows you to feel like He's not there sometimes, and you get this longing for Him that it's so painful that you want to die. Is how she describes it. So painful that you want to just die and go to heaven already because this world sucks. There's nothing. I don't want to go back to the world. There's nothing for me there. God, where are you? That's like the deep pain, which she calls a rapture, because sometimes He comes back, and sometimes it's like, oh, there you are, Lord, and then you want to stay there in this state. And again, like I said, the interior comes out in the exterior, and that's kind of the theme of this video. Um, and once you sort of get past that, I think when she talks about level 7, it's kind of a shorter chapter. The level 6 chapter was really long, but once you get to level 7, it's like transforming. It's called the transforming unity. So this one is called simple. Level 5 is called simple. Level 6 is called ecstatic, because it's very emotional, and you have that ecstasy once you rejoin with God in your soul. And then level 7 she calls, or I don't know if she calls it this, but it's typically described as transforming. So at this point, you know, you're basically a saint, and can you be tempted and sin in this stage? Like, yes, you can, like, because you as a human still have free will, and you can do whatever you want. You could do bad things if you want, but at this point, you don't want to. You know, at this point, you're like, I really, really, really want to stay with God because this is the best life. And the thing is, this includes suffering. So, we know in the Christian life, we know that we understand the cross of Christ. Suffering is good, because life is good, and once if you're a good person, you're going to suffer regardless because there's bad people in the world. Um, Suffer, natural disasters, suffer the own consequences of your own actions. You're going to suffer for one reason or another, but love is willing the good of others, willing even the good of God, like giving back to God, because He has loved us and given us everything. So um, I think, going back now, I read the book, I learned all these things, and maybe it's supplemented my intellect and or my intelligence, which I use a lot. Um, but the love itself, this is the key. This is the key. This, like, what else matters besides this? This is what we're trying to get at. God is love, which has been, said in the Bible. This is what we're going for. And what is the love? It's the willing the good of the other and doing the action. And so for me, I've always, always, always been a thinker, an overthinker, where I think all the time and never do anything. And so that's actually part of the reason why I got caught in my addiction so bad, because I was always anxious. I was always anxious about, are people gonna like me? Am I gonna be perfect? And what happened was that, in order to escape that anxiety and that pressure, I went to addictive behaviors. And I don't know for other people who have addictions if you can relate to that, if you have a different trigger, but for me, the trigger was always anxiety. The trigger was always shame. Um, that even complacency, like, let's say that I was doing well in life, and sometimes I would feel like I'm doing well, maybe I can just go back to my addictive behavior, because to reward myself, like, addictive behavior is some kind of reward system. You just want to feel better. You just want to feel better for one reason or another. um, and it's self-centered. And the reason I'm going through this whole spiritual journey is because I don't want to be self-centered. I want to be God-centered. And God, like that whole universe model, that life-solving model I made in the past, God resonates. In fact, I have it here. That old model that I have. It's this one here. Is that? Oh yeah, I was talking about this, like how how the sun, the energy. This is not even religious. This is not describing God, but this is talking about the sun or the universe, quantum energy, dissipating out into the world, entering us who are Turing machines meant for solving life, and living a good life. And then I figured out it's morally good if you're helping other machines live life or whatever. Um, and then this is like what I've discovered, where if you unify yourself with the universe, quantum energy or whatever, um, you can get closer and closer to the source. Um, and, and I guess I'm starting to relate this. I'm not trying to give a naturalistic explanation for God being in the quantum universe, but I believe in God, and therefore the quantum universe dissipating infinite energy from nowhere, from quantum foam. If that is how God operates in reality, then that's what I accept. So I rather for me, it's like I enjoy seeing the parallels. I'm not trying to give an explanation. Um, anyway, that dissipating energy, that coming from my center, and giving it toward others as an act of service. This is where we make the transition to like using my intellect, using my intelligence to do all these things for other people. And like these things here, I do for my small family, my wife and my son. Even this one too, but I haven't really gotten a huge success on that yet. But then this is all for work, and this is for me like interacting with other people. So I can make a whole nother video, which I think I will, where I can take each of these problems and do my whole game theory thing where I try to solve them. Solve for income, but instead of income anymore, I'm not solving for that. I'm solving for giving greater value than I receive, because that's kind of how life can work. Because when we eat like a hamburger, we're getting so many calories, and we can do a lot of those things with those calories. What are we going to do with those calories? Um, it is quite, I don't want to say easy, because for some people it's not easy, but um, depending on your situation in life, you take those calories from what you eat, and if it's a struggle for you to get more food, then you probably use all your energy trying to get more, whatever your next meal is. But if you have that comfort of not having to worry about the next meal, you're going to get it, then you can invest that energy into something else. um, Create a new homeostasis for yourself, a new baseline. um, and I am privileged to have been taken care of by my family, my friends, the world, myself, because I have been a self-centered person, and I've been blessed with so many things, and I have not given back. Um, and so I feel that in my life right now, I'm making a transition where it's time to give back. Um, I've received enough, and I've done enough bad things where, I probably don't deserve anymore. Well, it's not that I'm not saying that I don't deserve good, but it's like I'm thankful for all the good that I've received, and I'm taking it upon myself to really, again, unite with God, unite with God's will, and do good for others. And so I'm going to make another video where I look at each of these, and I can, do my whole thing where I enjoy gamification and optimization. Um, and yeah, solve for that. But today I wanted to talk about love. And the reason I made this video is because I want to love you, not romantically, not anything like that. Not even as like familial, but agape love. Agape meaning unconditional love. And when I talk about the radiating universe, um, we did we ask for the sun to rise every day to give us billions of quantized energy, billions of photons, um, pouring into our solar panels and pouring into our leaves and chlorophyll every day, and the algae of the ocean, and giving us the temperature that moves the hurricanes, and the water and the heat, the heat cycle of the world, and the hot and cold convection currents, all these things, and even within the earth, like tectonic plates, like all that energy. What, the moon, we didn't request, as part of creation, hey, I want the moon to be there, therefore it's there. No, it wasn't us. if you believe in God, you know it's God. If you don't believe in God, then it's simply there. Um, you can find your own explanation for why it's there, but it is there, and we can be thankful that um, all these things are there for us to enjoy and love. And what do we do with that energy that comes into us via food, right? Um, and now, just a final thing to say. I talk about via food is where we get our energy. Well, another thing I want to talk about my Catholic faith is we receive the Eucharist, the Holy Communion in church, and that's where we take in the body and blood of Jesus, in the bread and wine. Um, and it we go to church. We Catholics go to church to get fed. Um, and when I take in that energy, it's a I get the physical energy, sure, but the what we believe is that it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus within the bread and wine, and so I get that spiritual energy as well. That Holy Spirit, that breath of life, that love, that energetic doing love, not just an intellectual. I want this. I have the intention, but to do the action, and that's something I've lacked my whole life. Um, and so I'm at a point where I want to stop using my intellect so much, stop relying on that because it goes nowhere if it doesn't if there's no love. But it's exciting because I do have this intellect that's been given to me, and I hope that what love I do give to the world gets maximized um, through my effort and through the intelligence that I've been wasting my whole life. I want to use it for good. I want to use it for you. So this is a big video for me. I don't know how many people are going to listen to this. Um, again, it's a thought spill. I'm using these videos as a journal of sorts in my addiction recovery and my development, not just as an artist, but as a person. And I want my life to be the work of art painted by God. And with that, I love you all. God bless you all. Talk to you later. Bye bye.